The questions that we are going to attempt to answer today for the listeners are, depending on when your Super Bowl is, ideally, where should you be at right now, currently? And then what should you be focusing on for the next 2 months? And you guys answered the question in the way that I wanted you to, whereas we can say, if you're listening to this podcast, we are trying to give you a swift kick in the ass to start what you would normally start in January or mid-January right now. Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full goon squad in the house.
Yo, what's up?
We had some breaking news in the fitness community this past week. The guy who would get voted most roided out man in Instagram history came clean and said that he is in fact on steroids. So that's the amount of time that I think we probably need to spend on that topic.
Yep.
Yeah, coming clean, is that the right vernacular, or was he like forced to? Because everyone shows his emails where it's like, yeah, no, I work out twice a day, but I also take all of this.
But did people no one, you didn't.
That dude looked like an action figure.
No one, yeah, and he's fucking like in his mid-40s.
It's basically
That's not possible.
What's his body fat percentage? That information has to be out there somewhere.
I mean, in those original videos,
give him a pinch, find out.
I would say he was probably at like 5, would be my guess.
Beard tug.
Give us a bearded tug. 5?
5-ish
Yeah.
would be my guess in that those original videos.
Yeah.
That
I mean, he looked
motherfucker
like a freak before.
A combination of a Ninja Turtle and an action
I also
figure.
didn't know until all the controversy that he's a CrossFitter. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, so I saw that
All
when
those
part of his thing
CrossFit
Metcon.
conjugate.
Oh, does he?
So you do like conjugate method in the morning, and then you do, I think.
No. The first thing he does, he goes for a walk, and then he suns his bag. That's what he says.
He doesn't have a bag.
He's smart though. You can't see his growth hormone jaw because of that gigantic beard.
That's true. Is it like sucked in, or is it like pronounced more? I don't remember how that effect is. Is it
No,
more
you
pronounced?
literally. I mean, have you watched the Joe Rogan Experience? His head is twice as big as it used to be.
They inflate over time. Just look at Peyton Manning. They just inflate over time.
Imagine if your forehead grew taller.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen those memes. Forehead 16 stories.
Now on to a more serious question. This one gets very serious. I want you guys to really try to tone it down.
Yeah.
If you were, primer question. This is for all of you, including you, Ted. How often do you eat chips and salsa at your house?
I plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth.
Man,
Like just sit down and eat chips and salsa. Like, is that something that you do or no?
How many
I'd
bags a week?
say it's only like once every 2 weeks on average.
Okay.
Maybe more frequently, because that could also be that's carbs for a side dish at dinner. So
Okay.
I'm assuming we include that.
Are you talking like specifically chips and salsa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, yeah, once every couple weeks.
Okay.
I mean, I eat chips
ask
every
me
day.
like, ask me like a year ago, and that was like
Breakfast.
like you got to change the measurement metric.
Do you eat chips and salsa on a regular basis at home?
Fuck yes.
Okay. Now, if you crack a jar of salsa, a full jar,
That's a serving.
and you sit down to eat chips and salsa, how much of it do you put back into the fridge?
I don't understand the question.
It's a single use. It's not.
Yeah, you can't put it back in the
perishable
fridge.
jar.
Supposedly salsa is like the dirtiest condiments. So you can't put it back in the fridge.
I mean, again, since macro tracking Hunter, it would actually be a disciplined based on the chip consumption.
Okay.
Non-macro tracking Hunter is like, yo.
There's only about a third
I'ma
of the bag of
fuck
chips
this.
left, and
Yeah,
you also finish that.
And the only reason there's a third of the bag left is because there's no salsa.
Correct.
Left. Yeah.
Yes.
To be clear, if I'm trying to control myself, that salsa's going in a separate dish. But if I'm feeling like I'm just hungry, it's coming right out of the jar on those chips. And usually
Wait,
like
put it in
a
a separate
quarter
dish?
of the jar will go back in the fridge.
I do.
Okay.
I do use the separate dish method. I didn't used to, but then it's like unless you got the little the scoops.
I
Like,
use
the
I use the separate dish for a totally different reason.
Yeah, because you're blending your salsa, you freak.
Because I will
the edges of the bowl around. So
typically, so there's that as a convenience factor. Right. Like if you don't want bloody looking knuckles, like it gets a little weird towards the end of the jar. But
whatever.
Like if I'm alone and I can just dump it into my mouth
bag
and then
of chips and
exactly.
Salsa, you're worried about your knuckles.
But I'm worried about wasting the end of it. So I dump all of it into a bowl and then I put a little water into the jar and I shake it up and then dump that in.
Yeah,
so I'm actually doing it because I want more salsa. I just only eat salsa a jar to a jar and a half at a time. And the people in my life, my personal life, think that that's fucking insane.
The only problem,
like, did you just eat all of that?
Curiosity, how many people are we talking about here? one plus 3 animals?
Probably 5.
Oh, okay.
No, it's made its way out into the world. And everyone's like, you just house an entire jar of salsa? And I'm like,
wait, you said a jar and a half. Are you buying 2 jars when you go to the grocery store?
Can we also quantify jar? Are we talking just like standard Tostitos size jar?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not eating Tostitos.
There's
white trash. Tostitos, you scumbag.
Disgusting.
Hannaford
the reason I say that is because I eat so much of it that if it's been used for like tacos or something else and there's like a third of it gone, I'll dump the jar in. And then when I go to dump the next one in, I just go, fuck it. And I dump the rest of it all in there.
I'll dump an entire jar into rice. That's the quick Spanish rice recipe.
Yep. All right. So,
go on.
If you're trying to add some mass, trying to lift some weight,
you're trying to do that?
In this bubble, my salsa behavior is perfectly normal.
I was gonna. How many calories?
I see no issue with your salsa consumption.
Right? Like a jar of salsa.
You don't get vegetables anywhere else. You may as well eat jars of salsa.
Exactly. It's like
salsa.
Yeah, tomato.
Like nothing.
Yeah, that's free calories.
Yeah, it's delicious.
You're packing on mass with chips.
Yes.
How many bags of chips are required?
Hey, take it easy.
For 1 to 1.5.
You're gonna dig.
I get 2. I get about, I would say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3/4 of the bag gets me a jar. There's always some left at the end, and especially if I'm in the Dreamatorium with only the dogs, we finish the rest of the chips together because I'm not bringing that shit upstairs.
Yeah,
expect me to carry up 1/4 of a bag?
I'm covered in drool at that point because all 3 of them know. Yeah. They're like, once that salsa's gone, Fat Boy's gonna give us the rest of his chips.
What kind of chip? What kind of chips?
For a very long time, I was into it's like maybe Green Mountain. It's got a Vermont something on it. They're the strips.
I know what you're talking about.
Those strips are great. A lot of excellent dexterity because the shape you can really get down in there and they hold together. I like the Cantina dippers. Those are pretty good, but the bag itself is a ripoff. It's one of those ones where the bag's gone and it's like, hey, where is my gorging final 25% to happen? So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I haven't met that many chips that I didn't get along really well with.
Right. Yeah.
I've been a chip guy for a pretty long time.
What do you got? I know you got.
What are your staple food groups?
No, you fucking Tostitos. I'm not white trash.
Westbrook special.
I get the Market Basket special.
God damn it.
No, I'll probably go with what's the name of that brand that comes in the paper bag? It's got
Mia Nina.
Yeah, that one. That one I like a lot. They got like a Pico de Gallo one that's pretty good. Jalapeno agave one that's pretty good. I mean, kind of the same boat.
Have you had the spicy chipotle ones yet?
Yeah, those are good too.
Ooh,
yeah, baby, good. The only issue in my house with chips and salsa is I gotta take the fucking chips out of the bag. The bag itself is the bane of my wife's existence. If she hears me fucking rumbling around that bag,
dude.
Fucking laser beams shoot out of her eyes. She digs her fucking fingernails into the chair. I can hear her teeth
I like
grinding.
the passive aggressive volume change on the TV. That comes before the berating.
I'm like, I can hear you. Just tell me to go get a bowl.
That's what you do. You do that every day at work.
I mean, if we're gonna do chip talk,
I was thinking about chips, okay?
Can we just talk about the fact that you used to be able to open a bag of chips normally like this, and now you can't do that?
You need an X-Acto knife.
And you rip it open from the side, and then that's one of the reasons you finish it, because how am I supposed to crumple this thing back up?
Yeah.
You used to be able to open a chip bag normally. Now they don't want you to.
I don't know that I've ever, in my own home, put chips in a bowl. The bag is the bowl.
Proud of you. I wish I could say the same.
That's something Maya would do and like be like, here, is a snack.
I think
I'm like,
that's
that's
a
nicer than I would do, but I still wouldn't do it
Yeah.
right.
I think
Well,
it's a dish
that's actually part of it
laziness
as well.
This
Yes.
is a dish for ants.
Yeah, there's also not a big enough bowl. It's like
No.
2 houses.
Our perspective, my wife and I's perspective on like what a serving of chips is very, very different. So I wouldn't even want her to do that. I'd be like, I eat 3 chips. She'd be like, there you go, enough. I'm like, I don't understand what we're doing here. This
You
is
two are not the
confusing.
same species, though.
That's true.
I think my like the point of stopping chip consumption is usually closer to like there's now 7 chips caked on all of my teeth.
That's
It's
the
like
best
I'm wearing a
part.
mouth
I
guard.
love it. I love a good paste.
Yeah. Mouth guard and like the top of my mouth is bleeding like
got
profusely.
a double horseshoe in his mouth.
I much prefer a potato chip to a tortilla chip, though. Like much prefer.
Standalone, I would agree with that. But my body needs the nutrients, so it trends towards chips.
Begs for salsa. It begs for salsa.
Body needs that vegetable oil.
Desperately.
Whoa.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to keep this rolling for a little bit. I hope
Nothing
you
else
guys
to
are
talk about.
enjoying Chip Talk with the Goon Squad. Best chip on its own. No accoutrement, no nothing. Favorite chip.
Any style of
Any
chip?
style of chip.
Fox Family salt
Favorite
and vinegar.
chip. Fox Family?
Fox Family salt and vinegar.
The silver bag?
Silver
That's a
bag.
top
Okay.
I
three
think
for
they're
me,
out of
for sure.
New Gloucester, Maine or something like
Yeah,
that.
the
but
top 3
man,
for me for sure.
I'm a Thunder chip. Salt and vinegar Thunder chips. Used to be able to get those at Amato's. Bright green bag, ridges,
Chip a tooth.
chip a tooth.
Yes,
kinda
those
chip.
were, I remember those. Yeah.
Big dark russets kind of guy.
It's worth
Smuggle them into
Dipped in
prison,
ketchup. Ooh.
fashion a shiv.
Yeah,
you could make an arrow out of it in
fucking
prison,
shank
shoot the guy in the other cell,
Jugular.
It's a
slice the guard's Achilles.
It's a Wyndham
through the
throwing
bars.
star.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Thunder chips.
So you like them
They're-
real crunchy.
They're hard. They're not. I don't think they're that crunchy. They're like.
I remembered those being pretty intensely. They weren't fucking around.
They have.
They were
they
were
unique-
thicker than a ruffle.
Yes, that's true.
Yep.
Is it bad I eat them so fast I have no fucking idea what's on the name of the bag? I just crack the bag open, stuff the bag in my face as fast as
You
possible.
still have
and
to
it's
give
over.
an answer.
I really like a salt and pepper chip. I like that. I don't know the name of the brand. That's the problem here. Is I don't know the name of the brand.
I know the brand you're talking
It's got
about.
like a crunch, real pretty crunchy
Yeah.
chip. Yeah, I like that. And then there's
That's a
another one
great
that's like a
chip.
sour cream and cheddar. Also really like that
Yep.
chip. So like between salt and vinegar, salt and pepper, and then the sour cream and cheddar, we got my like,
Another
three favorite.
layer are cheese doodles chips.
I'm not.
Doodles,
I'm not
bro.
a cheese doodle guy.
Oh,
I
you're
can't.
missing out. I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean,
fucking love me a
More for me and you, huh? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Between Fritos, Cheetos, cheese puffs.
Well, Fritos are chips.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah.
Also a big smart food guy. Love me some smart food popcorn.
I
I'm
know a
pretty
kid in
sure
college
that's-
names.
I don't know. I don't know what it's made out of.
That's my middle name.
I don't want to find out what it's made out of, but they're delicious.
I think it's popcorn.
No. Like the stuff that makes them so unique. I don't know, that powdery
Yeast
cheese.
extract.
Yeah,
Yeah.
MSG.
That's why those salt and pepper chips are so good. It's like your
It's
tongue
MSG.
feels like it's going to fall out of your head. So if we're excluding cheese doodles, because that's a whole separate passion of mine, we could do doodle chat.
It's a doodle, not a chip.
It's a doodle, not a chip. Wow. Okay, because my mind immediately
puff.
went to the doodles. I can't even answer my own question.
Wait,
Wow.
wait. Now you're
I'm saying,
answering
you eat them so
cheese
fast, you
chip
have no idea.
or
No,
cheese.
he's trying to figure out
I'm
his.
trying to figure out my
chip.
favorite chip.
Oh, and
Clam
okay,
chips.
got it.
I would probably agree that it's a potato, and it might be that same brand as Ted's, but the barbecue.
Have you had the spicy barbecue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so they used to have just barbecue, and it was spicy as fuck, and I think it upset people, so they wrote spicy on
Do
the
They have-
bag.
the
do they have an
name.
all dressed flavor too?
No, they've got salt and pepper, salt and vinegar, and spicy barbecue.
And sour cream and onion.
They have sour cream and onion.
Yes, they do.
Damn.
I don't do
like
sour
that
cream. It makes me fart.
All right. If you're just joining us now because you skipped ahead over Chip Talk with the Goon Squad,
Go back and rewind.
I have a primer question for you two to get the episode started. If we use the CrossFit Games season as our season, which most people do that listen to this podcast, what time of year would you consider no man's land? That time of year where it doesn't really feel like you're riding the high of the season just ending and not quite close enough, to have you motivated for the following season? You know, so the dog days of X time of year. What would you consider that?
Halloween and New Year's?
Okay.
I was going to say like October and November into
It's like when they announce the Open, you can sign up for it. It's like that. Until that happens, it feels like there's a...
Yeah, I think like October through like middle of December, maybe. Usually like we start to, like our program specifically starts to ramp up kind of end of the year. So, and then like you combine like the holidays for people and then like the time change, and especially up here where it's starting to get darker later or earlier. Yeah, like that like 2 to 3 month period where it's like, all right, I was excited for phase 1, but there's still a long time till the Open, that sort of thing.
So you guys sort of already answered it, but that second question is, when is the epiphany of I got to be ready in X period of time for the Open? When does that hit for you guys? Or when do you think that hits for other people?
I think it's got to be New Year's. New Year.
Because at that point, you're about, like this year, you'd be 6 weeks out, roughly, give or take?
Because I think it starts to, I mostly, more like psychologically, it just coincides with like, we've done the holiday rush. Yep. Now it's like, what's next on the docket? Holy fuck, the Open's coming up.
Yep.
So that's where I would guess.
Yeah, I'd say right around the end of phase 3, which will put you right around the New Year, be when it's like, oh shit, now it's coming. Because like 6 weeks out, if you have been training at a pretty decent level, even if you haven't been taking it super serious, you probably ramp yourself up and be pretty ready to do the Open now that it doesn't matter as much as it used to. But yeah, I'd say probably around the New Year. I do think it's really hard to be focused from like August, second week of August until February.
Also, obviously varies a lot based on
what your goals are.
When
did you stop competing?
Yeah.
Yep. So the questions that we are going to attempt to answer today for the listeners are, depending on when your Super Bowl is, ideally, where should you be at right now, currently? And then what should you be focusing on for the next 2 months? And you guys answered the question in the way that I wanted you to, whereas we can say, if you're listening to this podcast, we are trying to give you a swift kick in the ass to start what you would normally start in January or mid-January right now, and start to get into like really sort of pushing and figuring out what boxes do I need to check off. If I lay them all out between now and the Open, like what's doable, but also like what do I really need to be able to get done? And I basically just want to go, not necessarily rapid fire, but fairly quickly through where should you ideally be right now? Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, CrossFit Games athlete. We'll start with the Open athlete. Where should you be at right now in terms of your fitness, your level of focus? Someone who is going to do the Open RX, but either isn't concerned with the quarterfinals or is potentially a fringe quarterfinals athlete.
Yeah, this athlete, I think, needs to still be paying a lot of attention to how they're moving through things and really understanding like what the programming is trying to achieve in terms of like stimulus and feel and all of that. And really pouring a lot of effort and energy into like trying to execute the way that's intended to be executed. I do think that obviously you need to be paying attention to your bitch work and doing, high intensity metcons, but still it's really important right now that you're really doubling down on how you move, which sets you up for phase 4 and to phase 3 and into phase 4 to ramp you up so that you have combined this really high level of detail to the way you're moving and the way you're getting better at the skills in our sport. And you can marry that up with that like final push of really developing a high level engine. So those things do kind of get married together so that when week 1 of the Open rolls around, you're not concerned about like, man, I really put off learning how to do toes to bar better this year, or I really didn't really dial back my energy systems or figure out how I can get better at machines so that like, I can pour a lot of hard effort into these things so I can increase my fitness. So I think that athlete right now is still kind of toeing the line between like, I don't need to be doing a ton of volume. I need to be doing really specific work to me that's focused on how I am moving so that I'm set up to have high intensity as a ramp up into the season or into the competitive part of their season.
Yeah, I think that athlete is still like, I don't think that athlete needs to be focusing on a whole lot outside of just GPP, 98% of the year. I think the time frame that we're in right now, you're beginning of December and you can the extra stuff that athlete can be doing should be directed specifically towards open movements that have notoriously been a goat for them. It's like, my toes to bar always fall apart during an open workout. Okay, you can put an extra skill piece in a couple times a week to work on that. Other gymnastics movements, that sort of thing, just to make sure that you're buffing up that capacity relative to you. But otherwise, I think that athlete just needs to do CrossFit to prepare for the CrossFit Open.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to that, and it's just a little bit of an expansion of what Hunter just said, is I think it'd be really useful for an open athlete to quick Google search. There's a bunch of articles that sort of let you know what movements have come up in the open. Spoiler alert, they're exactly the same almost every single year. So what you can do is create a matrix where you have rowing, double unders, toe to bar, thrusters, burpees, deadlift. You have that list and you are tracking. And I would go back through the entire month of November, probably fairly easy with most of these athletes or affiliate athletes, and can go to either the website. You can ask, one of the coaches, do you have a spreadsheet of what we did, whatever. And just literally a tally of, I have done rowing this many times, I've done double unders this many times, and go down through. And by doing that, you are essentially making sure that you are already working on this thing, and then within the month of December, start to think about movement efficiency inside of those movements. To me, that is the number one thing, because unfortunately, we have a lot of athletes that we see who come in that have that baseline level of fitness, that can push pretty hard, that don't have the skill, and they will lose to somebody who knows how to work through those movements more efficiently during the open. And you really wish that the natural order of things cared more about how hard you were working. But in this sport, the efficiency is super important. And I do agree with Hunter on that. You have to have the asterisk next to, man, I suck at toes to bar, I cannot string double unders together. Yeah, don't wait until February 1st to start working on those things. But I am also a very firm believer in, if you care about your position in the open and you are really good at rowing, get better at it. Get even better at rowing, get even better at whatever, cycling, 75-pound power snatch, whatever it is. If you have those things that you're good at and you go too far in overcorrecting for your weaknesses, there could be some issues there with maybe it doesn't show up, the thing that you worked super hard on. And one of the best ways to get GPP is to absolutely obliterate yourself in wheelhouse workouts. Extending that to quarterfinals athletes, what would you add to where would you hope ideally that they're at right now?
I mean, my answer doesn't change dramatically. I just think those athletes need to be aware of, you just talked about the matrices of like all the things that could potentially show up in the open. We're starting to see more things expand out into quarterfinals, some more movements get interjected or used in that time of the year for that competition. So I would just, again, go back to that same idea, look at the list of things and be like, all right, when's the last time I did a legless rope climb? Or when's the last time I did a bench pressing workout in the middle of a thing? Because one of the things that threw athletes a big curveball this past year was I think it was like 2K row, 5,000 meter row, 500 meter row with some bench press afterwards. And athletes like, I never fucking bench press, or I don't bench press regularly enough to know myself well enough to know how I should approach this. So I think that you potentially have a slightly larger playbook of movements to look at and address. But those athletes right now, are probably not so concerned about the open. They have a high level of fitness, so they're probably pretty buttoned up when it comes to most of the open workouts. They probably have a high level of fitness. They've been relatively consistent with their training. They just need to, again, be aware of things that might come up in quarterfinals that potentially they haven't touched on since last year's quarterfinals, and just ask themselves, like, when's the last time I took the 70-pound dumbbell for a ride? Or when's the last time, again, I did a legless rope climbs or a high volume GHD workout? Because, we program those GHDs regularly on the program, but if you're an open athlete, you might have elected to skip those pieces, or maybe you were last year an open athlete and this year you're going to be a quarterfinals athlete, and maybe you've been a little bit shy about doing some of those pieces just because you're relative experience with those movements. It's now time to make sure you dabble, or at least you know how to do those things efficiently, or at least you know how those things play into your own physiology, so you're not surprised when the quarterfinals comes around and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that 125 GHDs would put me in a grave for 2 weeks. Like, you don't want that to be a surprise going into that part of your season.
My answer doesn't change drastically. I think the quarterfinals athlete still has a little bit of time and flexibility to really work on, maybe if they're limited by their strength, they can still be getting stronger at this time of year to make sure that the other total isn't what completely obliterates them. And I think that I would say the same thing about the gymnastics stuff. Like if you had a high skill movement in quarterfinals, we're talking now more about like ring muscle ups and stuff like that. We should be like refining movement patterns still and like starting to develop a little bit more capacity. I'm thinking of a member at our gym that I've been helping out try to get her ready for quarterfinals. She's been doing a lot of strength work, and she's still going to continue to do that up until about like the new year. And then it's probably going to be like, hey, I'm not saying you won't get stronger, because getting fitter tends to get people stronger, but there's going to be a bit more of a shift towards like, now we need to make sure that like the engine is there, and there's nothing that's slowing you down, and there's maybe not as much room for absolute strength improvement, which we don't necessarily care all that much about anyway in the grand scheme of things. But if that's something that an athlete has needed to work on, that they're still able to be doing that at this time of year.
Yeah, I would say that you still have about at least a month where you can go in and pull out the GHDs, the rope climbs, the muscle ups, the handstand walking. I think it's important, sort of added to my list after hearing you guys talk, would be the strength work, and have that still live alone on its own. There's the first step within that, which is the skill. It's like, it's on its own. We need to figure out how to do it. We need to figure out how to do it efficiently. But then the second step, before it should be presented in like true high volume in a workout, is building the capacity off of the skill before going into the workout. So you get a lot of athletes who, especially at the affiliate level, will ask, hey, can you stay after and show me how to do a butterfly kip or to get the whatever? And unfortunately don't have that plan laid out for them of, we're going to do 2 sets this week, and then we're going to do 3 sets next week, and we're going to move through that. And then under fatigue, you'll be able to chip away at this thing. So I would say quarterfinals athletes still have time to do that. And if you haven't started doing that, a month is a decent chunk of time where you can go in, and I would make sure that you're working on all of them, but the ones that you aren't so good at, most movements like that can be done twice a week, I would say. Yep. Some obviously, like if it's a strict handstand push-up, it can be done 3 or 4 times a week. If it's GHD sit-ups, it can be done 1.5 to 2 times a week, somewhere in that range. And then that strength thing, I think, is potentially something that was glossed over a little bit with the open athlete. A baseline level of strength is very much like what I said about the skill. You can be really fit and have the strength work that you do, if it falls by the wayside at all, that can be this massive detriment to, it doesn't really matter how fit you are if you don't feel comfortable cycling a 95-pound thruster. So there is a baseline level of strength that once you have a bigger strength breakthrough after some sort of biased strength training cycle where you're like, oh, whoa. So this is what those other people feel like when they're doing thrusters, or they're doing shoulder to overhead, or they're doing
you don't know what Fran feels like until you can squat 400 or 350 or whatever it is. It's like, even though you have the engine, if you can't move a barbell like that and do it fast, like you might not have unlocked like a level of intensity that you previously didn't have. So, and
it is very similar to skill work, other than the central nervous system demand is massively different from your skill work.
Yeah, I only have one last thing to add is that if you're someone that currently, because of your training environment or lifestyle, only prevents you to do 1 session a day, and you want to be a quarterfinals athlete, you might want to start dabbling with practicing the double session kind of thing, maybe even on a weekend, just one day a week, just to get used to the style of warm up
or
workout,
a skill on a rest day.
Exactly.
Find those sessions.
Just so you're used to that style, because when you do the quarterfinal workouts, unless they change the format, which I don't think they will, you'll have to do multiple efforts on one single day, and knowing how to prepare your body and how to take yourself through a day like that is really important, and what those days do if they're stacked back to back. So again, one of the things we do in the gym is tinker in some giant, physical lab for yourself, see how your body responds to 2 days of two sessions, and realize that maybe that's going to be how you're going to have to approach some of these things, and just getting comfortable with that ahead of time and knowing like what you like to do to warm up, execute, and then cool back down, which then allows you to then do it a second time, because you will do that.
Yeah, I think along those lines, I'd say some free volume, so to speak, for that level of athlete is a maffetone session. Like you could, if you're not doing the once a week, like start that time now. If you are looking for have the additional training piece, but maybe without the volume that's going to beat you up, a second MAF session, whether that's on a rower, like a rower is not a bad one. A ski erg's a little bit nuanced. I think that we've seen it help people with like upper body stamina as a really good training tool. Obviously, we're probably not going to see a ski erg in quarterfinals, but I don't know, maybe. Could we?
No.
I think they would put a ski erg? No.
They would have already announced like, hey, you need to get this piece of equipment.
They haven't put the equipment list out, have they?
No. I mean, I don't see it as being likely. I could see it if they ever did like an in-person or an online semifinal again, for whatever reason, they could have it there, but very rarely other than that, I would say.
Semifinals athlete. Now we're obviously starting to deviate quite a bit. Where should a semifinals athlete be right now?
In the shadows still. In the shadows, doing a fair amount of math work, a fair amount of addressing specific weaknesses that maybe held them back or gave them a bunch of extra points leading into quarterfinals. Maybe they, instead of being in the bottom heat day one, they want to be in the top heat, so they're not spending the first day of the competition playing catch up. That kind of athlete is thinking about what specific either energy systems or movements that I still have a tiny weakness relative to my competitors that still exists, and figuring out what the edge is. This is the type of athlete that might be more obsessed with watching themselves move on camera and thinking about the little tiny things, the 0.1% that the average CrossFitter is like, I row pretty well. Like they're finding out like, can I find a way to get an extra 2 inches of my rowing stroke every stroke? Is there a way to make sure that I can turn my sets of 7 muscle ups into 8? They're trying to eke out those last percentage points there, but they're probably still super obsessed with developing that aerobic base, and they're more concerned with energy systems and making sure they can go short, medium, and long at the intensity they want, as opposed to maybe specific movements as much as the the open or the quarterfinal athlete.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that level of athlete, other than like making sure that the athlete IQ stuff is really forefront in your brain as far as what training pieces you're doing, why, and specifically so that you can be eking out those fractions of a percent of effort and intensity and whatnot. I think there's still time to be sliding in weakness templates and stuff like that for movements that are notoriously a goat for you. I think there's still time to be developing that strength base with more of like the slow lifts, so to speak. Because we'll have obviously probably like the turn of the new year, probably even later for a semifinals athlete, there'll be a lot more weightlifting and kind of sport specific lifting stuff. But I think, and having listened to Alexis last week talk on the podcast about like, doesn't take me, a semifinals caliber athlete, doesn't take all that long to remember how thrusters, box jumps, and burpees feel, as far as that goes. And again, those movements are assuming that person's going to move on from quarterfinals to semifinals, is just that last little brush up. It's not until after the new year that we start to pull out the handstand walk ramp and the 100-pound dumbbells for for reps and stuff like that. So,
I think the only retort to that would be there are the unicorns that are good on machines and pretty skilled and pretty strong, and either because of athlete IQ or maybe they don't have the the aerobic engine, that those are the movements that you listed. Those are the ones they're not good at.
Yeah, sure.
So those people at this point should have acknowledged that and try to get better at CrossFit, which is weird because of how broad it is comparatively to the other things. I think it's really unique at the semifinals level that if you have a true old school weakness, oh my God, are they gonna let you know, or your competitors and semifinals in that competition gonna let you know what the difference is between your capacity and someone else's capacity? Everyone is so good now. Everyone is so well-rounded now that if you still struggle with GHD sit-ups or toes to bar or deficit handstand push-ups, I'm just sort of thinking about the Atlas games and seeing everyone together other than those couple of people at certain points. That really gets put in your face. And the tragic thing is somehow, even at these levels, athletes forget. They forget, they sort of go back into GPP mode, or subconsciously they don't want to work on it because that would present a whole new level of responsibility.
What are the odds that happens to me again?
Exactly. So I would say you should still be through, you should have been doing it already for months, and you should continue for the rest of this month to be slaying dragons, is what I call this with athletes. There's this thing that is standing between you and your prize, and it is a big deal, but it is very possible to get rid of it. And if you aren't focusing on that, if you're just turning a blind eye, it's no different at this level for you to be doing this than for the open athlete to fucking forget about their jump rope again for another year.
Yeah.
Or to not figure out how to get their chest to the bar when chin over bar has become whatever. There's no difference in these things.
No, stakes are just a little different.
Exactly. They present themselves in different ways. But at the end of the day, if you are presented with, wow, there's this one massive weakness and it could completely change my trajectory, and then you ignore it, it doesn't matter, again, if it's double unders or if it's a heavy sandbag.
I think it's also a time for that athlete to start. I think pretty much every athlete that we've talked about has a little bit of time to kind of to prepare for the start date of what they should be doing on or around the new year. But more often than not, I feel like what happens is that nobody thinks about it until it's you should have thought about it and start executing. Let's say, again, say January 1st is day one. If January 1st is the first day you're thinking about these things, then that level of stress gets compounded onto an athlete. And it even, despite the fact that you might have not done anything different at all, just feeling like you're behind the eight ball a little bit on January 1st is not a place you want to be. And I think for a semifinals athlete, something else that I would think is okay, what happens once the new year kicks in and the season kind of starts? Do I have people that I'm training with of similar caliber that I can really start to prepare to get on the floor with? That's something that I've worked with one of my athletes on, as far as there's the day one of semifinals can't be the adjustment period of oh, that's right, that's what it's like to go fast.
Is that too late?
It's a little late. We have to start thinking about that now. And for a lot of people, just from a logistical perspective, it's hey Bob, come January, you want to try to figure out how we can train once a week together, do a couple workouts to start to really grind the axe to sharpen it, I guess. I think just thinking about those things now will alleviate a lot of the stress of, oh, the holidays are over, January 1st, fuck, it's 6 weeks till the Open, and just that psychological stress.
You're better off going through that difficult period at this part of the year where you're building and earning your confidence so that you don't have that extra weight of that uncertainty and anxiety once you get to the season, because we all know athletes that have far better capacity than a lot of their scores show, namely because of anxiety going into the workout. That was what derailed them. It had nothing to do with the physiological ability from the ears down. It was from the ears up that caused them to underperform. So you can either look at this period now as a chance to earn confidence so you're less anxious come the competition season, or you can be fuck it, I'll just figure it out on the fly, and then have that, again, cause you to underperform for another consecutive year.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough on our favorite products. My favorite product right now is the complete morning routine solution in one scoop. If you head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit, you can save on our product Hydrate. Now, what I used to do is go downstairs and measure out a specific amount of salt, put that into a cup, shake it up, not love the crunchiness and salty flavor of the water. And then there would be a bunch left in the bottom. You got to put more water in. You got to swirl it around. You got to do all that good stuff. It is incredibly important. I don't know, sort of the make a long story short, when you get up in the morning, it is an intense demand on the system that regulates your blood pressure to allow you to stand up. If we didn't do that, people would pass out. What that does is it takes away a lot of the sodium within your body just to be able to get out of bed in the morning. And if you start the day dehydrated and at a deficit, physical and mental performance are going to be in the shitter basically the rest of the day. The easiest way to take care of that, 16 ounces of room temperature water, a scoop of proper hydrate, you shake it up, you slug it down, and you will feel completely different throughout the rest of your day. Properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit.
We're also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use your favorite athlete code, save 10%, donate a little money towards their journey. One thing we're talking about this podcast a lot about their upcoming season and how to best support them. But before I go any further, we are in the final days of trying to get your friends and family Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever gifts ahead of the holiday season. We are in the final week of shipping gifts out to our friends and family. So if you're anything like me, you tend to be a last minute shopper. You don't want to wait any longer than right now. Pause the podcast, head to sharpentheaxeco.com, pick up joggers, hoodies, socks, all of your friends and family's favorite Sharpen the Axe gear. And again, you can use an athlete code to save 10%, give them 10%, so hopefully they can buy their family members Christmas gifts as well.
Damn it. And lastly, we are brought to you by Team Misfit Affiliate Programming. If you've been listening to this podcast and you've got a host of athletes at your gym who are interested in peaking their performance for the Open or quarterfinals, or frankly, you just kind of turn the Open into a fun event, which is what it should be for affiliate level athletes who can display all the fitness that they've gained over a year, Misfit Affiliate Programming is where you want to be. We do... I mean, I don't know. I don't program for other companies, so can't technically say we do better than everybody else, but we do.
I've seen it. We do.
We do.
We make sure that you guys are getting the variance that athletes need over the course of an entire year. So making sure that athletes are going long, they are going short, they are going heavy, they are going light, they are addressing all of the skills and drills that they need to perform their best, whether their goal is just living until they're 90 and staying out of that nursing home, or making sure that they're continuing to see progress as their name moves slowly farther up the leaderboard during the Open. TeamMisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. You can get the subscription for less than the cost of a membership every month for just about every gym out there. I'm
going to add to this advertisement very quickly. The Open athlete is completely taken care of within an hour class. And then one thing that's so challenging for people that care about quarterfinals is that competitor extra. How often should I be doing skill? How often should I be doing monostructural work, strength work, whatever? That is also already figured in and fits perfectly into the programming as if it was all written together. So if you have a big group of quarterfinals athletes at your gym, the competitor extra is part of the programming that you receive, and having a sort of a nice cohesive plan for everybody, depending on how much they care about one end of, sort of, I just want to do the Open scaled all the way to I want to crush quarterfinals. Having that all in one program is a big game changer.
Absolutely. You can head to teammisfit.com to sign up there, or the SugarWOD marketplace. You get a free 2-week trial. Either way, set your athletes up for success in the Open. All right, back to the show.
Unperform. I like that.
Unperform.
CrossFit Games athlete. Where should a CrossFit Games athlete be right now? Because proximity to Super Bowl is not close.
Yeah, I don't know, just running around, doing some lifting, doing some running, doing some
tire flips and pistols.
All right, I'm gonna get this category started for you guys. I think even for the highest level athletes, there's a little bit too much of the concept of, I don't know, May, June, July, let's start running and swimming, or getting onto an actual bike, that sort of thing. linear progression is your friend, and the natural order of things and the physics and the way the universe works is, it's on my shirt little by little. You obviously, if you divide the sessions by, you have 100 sessions and you need to get a little bit better, that stacks up differently versus I need to make up the same ground in 40 sessions. The expectations are higher. The stress is higher. Every single piece that you do is going to take more of your central nervous system demand. And then I don't know, there's just something about, my opinion on this has changed over the years, but there's something about, I need my athlete's program to smell different. I need it's like P90X muscle confusion. I need
I'll go Tony Horton on your ass.
Something to where there's an obvious difference in what the stimulus could be that pushes you forward in a bigger way. And that could be something as simple as, this athlete's already strong, but when you go to the CrossFit Games, you find out how strong is, and then how strong, insanely, stupidly, like ridiculously strong is. So we are now doing 2 lifts and 3 accessories in one session for strength training. It could be we are doing 3 math sessions all year. It could be we are really gonna up that athlete IQ within Metcons. So turning some intervals back into Metcons, whatever it is, but there just needs to be something. And I think this works really well for getting CrossFit Games athletes their mind wrapped around their program and to have buy-in, as opposed to, I know what's right, so I'm going to program everything the same every single year and you just go execute. I think that could get stale for a lot of athletes. So hopefully through this point, you feel like you've changed something about your training, where you can notice this measurable change, as opposed to everything just being tiny, incremental, little by little type gains.
You just described a big part of the philosophy I have with athletes when it comes to a weakness. You have a full season, you have 100 training sessions. Why not try to get 1% better out of 100 sessions and try to still get 5% better out of 20 sessions?
Sure.
So there are athletes that I work with who have a definitive weakness on a rowing machine, for example, or hates running or can't squat. Like those things, we're going to figure out how to do them now, because you have big aspirations and big goals. And if that one single thing isn't shored up, you have a tremendous gap in your fitness, and you get thrown that workout or something with that domain in it, you're going to fall off the pack. And, talking about the games athlete, hopefully you've already reached the pinnacle of the sport. So congratulations, you get there, but you want to go there and do well. So I want to make sure you're ready to do well. And that trickles down all the way down from games, semi, quarter, open athletes. You don't want that one thing that you could, if you just worked on it, you would get better at it, to be the thing at the end of the season. You're like, fuck, if I only hadn't skipped all those rowing pieces, or instead of my math work, I like the mixed one because it's fun and easy on my head. I just sat 15 minutes on my least favorite machine and got better at that and learned more, kind of like Alexis talked about on her warm up for a lot of her pieces. There's a lot of data that can be learned, a lot of information that can be learned, a lot of fitness that can be gained by just putting in the hours. And the earlier you start putting in your hours, the less hours per session you have to put in, so to speak.
Yeah, I think another way to think about this is a CrossFit Games athlete finished up their season in beginning of August, was it? Right? Beginning of August.
First week of August.
A lot of them for phase 1 didn't really exist, right? So they had phase 2, they were training some, but certainly not at the same level that somebody who finished their season in quarterfinals.
And for a non-Misfit follower, you're looking at mid-August, about a 7-week stretch starting in mid-August.
Sure. So phase 2 was really, for a lot of games athletes, their first full training phase back. We are now in kind of the middle of phase 3, probably middle by the time you're listening to this. And I think for a games athlete, having that full phase 2 training phase kind of under your belt, you have a pretty good assessment of where you're currently at, and almost thinking about now as okay, what are the wickets that I need to hit between now and kind of the CrossFit Games? It's almost, I don't want to say it's the start of their season right now, but it's still very early for that athlete. And it's using, you got back into it with phase 2. You have some data, you have a better idea of where you're at post competition at the CrossFit Games, where your fitness is the actual, 90% of the time, this is your level of fitness.
Yeah.
What do we need to do to move forward and kind of up?
I think the elephant in the room with this conversation, and it's a side tangent, but is the concept of self-sabotage and identifying subconscious actions in and of itself is almost mutually exclusive, right? If it's truly subconscious, how are you supposed to sort of dig that up? But using the mental model of I'm not focusing on that thing that I know that some part of me knows that I need to. It does not matter who you are, how good you are. That is a form of self-sabotage. People get, whether they know it or not, really scared of the responsibility or expectations of the best version of myself. What if it's not as good as I thought it was? Or what if I clean this up and then don't make this massive leap? And we see it at every level. We see it at the affiliate level. And we see it all the way up to the CrossFit Games level. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you're being singled out, you're not. There's always something there where you know deep down that an athlete is just not putting the work in on that thing, because again, it presents an entirely new set of expectations. And that can be scary for a lot of people. Maybe it's easier to stay where I'm at because I already know what that feels like. The issue is, in hindsight, you will regret it. Everyone will regret it. No one works their ass off on something and then just goes, well, I mean, it didn't work. I didn't like that. Like, you never come out the other side once you decide to check out the other side of that coin and not feel accomplished, even if you didn't hit your exact goal. So
all I could think was Lord of the Rings, like walking all the way to Mordor and get to the end and going, I'll turn around and go home now.
It'd be like not going into the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good walk.
That was a pretty long. That was a pretty long walk. I basically did it.
I think I'm pretty tired. I'll go home now.
It's like my 2K row where I stopped because I knew I was going to be sub 7. Anyways, we'll just gloss over that. Now we're going to move on to
first 200 meters at 6:02.
Check
Holy fuck.
boxes.
Did you guys see that? See, Jason, you sent that to me.
I did.
Jason Hopper, 6:03.
You love that though. You look at an athlete.
Giant man of CrossFit Unite.
We talk about like,
I don't care how giant you are. 130 for that long is too long.
And look at the negative split too. His first 500 was his fastest. Then he backed off to like a 132 for 500 meters, and then went back down to like a 130.
It looked like it was on purpose though.
Yeah, no,
the cadence of 29, 32, 31, 30 to me looks like a strategy.
Yeah, I just
very much.
I really like the ownership of like, I can't let one of my friends fucking have the whatever, a 1 second P over my best. So fuck that. I'm gonna go in and take it.
And just
you can take it.
Wait and watch. People don't understand what they just did for the sport. They completely changed the trajectory of people's 2K row times, what people can expect to do in intervals. We've talked about this so many times. The power of possibility,
like a heavyweight rowing.
They're in the high fives.
I guess
they're like 540s, 545, 550, somewhere in that range.
But in terms of time dedicated to it, and
how many pull-ups can they do?
Like,
well, probably a lot.
I don't want to be a dick, but I'm talking to all the people that wouldn't think I'm a dick. Look what we did for weightlifting, and you're welcome rowing.
Yeah,
I'll just throw that out there. So being able to showcase GPP at that level is,
what I'm excited about now is for the next fucking person to see that video and be like, fuck that 604. Fuck that 602. Fuck that 559. Like, that's what happens in this sport. And like, that's what's really cool. Like, you look at that, you won't
ask yourself to go to a place that's that extreme without knowing first that it's possible to do.
Yeah, it's like the 5-minute mile. Oh my God, someone ran 5 minutes. All right, someone ran 4.5. Oh shit, someone ran 4:15, and now it's whatever 3:40 something. Yeah. Like, that's exactly what's happening here. So we're learning what the new standard is for a male competitor who wants to, if 2K row gets thrown at you at the CrossFit Games, you best be thinking about 6 minutes flat as like your new time.
Well, I also like that it was those two that did it, because let's say
Boz fucking loves a 2K row too.
Let's say Tia set some sort of record like that. People might just go, it's fucking Tia. Of course. Who cares? Once you get past, even just the podium or even just the top spot, people can be like, well, I don't know.
Sniff around and find out.
I don't know. That one open workout 6 years ago, him and I had the same time. So
we've been training the same amount.
We've been training the same amount for sure. So check boxes. We are in December. We are 2 months and a week or two into the Open. We're going to do the same. We're going to go down that same list again. What needs to take place between now and then? We're 2 months and a week away from the Open-ish, right? January, February, plus 1 week. Yep. What check boxes do each group of athletes need to have checked off before then? And for the sake of this being more entertaining, we can extend it into sort of calling now the Open that 5-week stretch where they're doing the Open and quarterfinals. I think that's a fair way to sort of word it. So I can give you guys some examples with those check boxes. Yeah. So when it comes to the Open athlete, I think that matrix of here are the movements, I've been doing them this often, the ones that I'm not good at, I have removed, I've done climb the ladders, and I've done 6x10s, and I've done misfit sets. That's all well and good. That's where we think you should be already. And if you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, fuck, thanks for the reminder, that's the rest of your December and into January 9th, where you're finally going to switch and join Misfit Athletics for phase 4. What needs to take place in my mind starting closer to January, but even now, is we need to know who the enemy is, not only in our fitness level, but in our, on the strategy level. So one of the best things that you can do for your Open scores is to start doing athlete IQ exercises every single time you do a Metcon. And these are really simple and really powerful. You sit down, and I'm going to tell you right now, you will make an ass out of yourself. The first time you do it, you're going to say, okay, this movement takes this long. You're going to write. So you have we'll give an example. You have 3 rounds of 10 toes to bar, 15 calorie row, and 20 wall balls. You're going to go in and say 10 toes to bar is going to take me X amount of time. You're going to write that time to the right. The rowing is going to take me this much time. You're going to write that time to the right. The wall balls will take me this much time. You're going to write that time to the right. You're going to multiply that by 3. You're going to think maybe if it's a real nasty workout, how long am I going to stand around in this? You will get it wrong, and then you're going to get it wrong again, and then you're going to get it wrong again, and then you're going to see a similar workout, and you're going to go, I'm checking my notebook for this. And you're going to see, okay, I thought it was going to take me 30 seconds to do these toes to bar. Oops, that's not correct. If you know exactly what this workout is for you, you know what eggs to put in what baskets. You might find out that, it's a meter row, and you were sitting next to your training partner and they smoked the row and you got off basically at the same time by not smoking the row. You might be like, okay, so I don't really need to go all out here. But then I transitioned to the wall ball and got to work, and it took them forever to do that. These are the things that you're going to start to pick up on. Do this exercise with every single Metcon you do for 2 months, and without doing any work, if we put it in a bubble in a vacuum, you will get better at CrossFit just by paying attention to what the fucking workout was. And if you can get that much better at something without that's the CNS demand of banging your head against the wall, I mean, it's fucking free, man.
An Open athlete has to know.
It's going to the grocery store and you go to check out and it's $0.
Open athlete has to know what certain movements do to them. And one of the things that I did with a couple athletes after the Open was like, okay, let's analyze your Open scores. Why were these two in the X percentile range or whatever, and then this one is way down at the bottom? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, this turns out this is a cardio style workout, and you just, for whatever reason, don't know how to strategize or can't manage to maintain a similar pace. For listeners, a cardio workout's like that merry-go-round type workout where the only reason you stop moving is because you're real tired. What was you're sad? Was there one this year? There wasn't really was the deadlift burpee was sort of the...
Yeah, definitely. That was cardio. Fuck off, Hunter.
No, that was cardio.
Fuck right off of that being cardio.
That was real good cardio.
Send your hate mail to hunter@misfitathletics.com.
Think thrusters, toes to bar, and double unders, that 20-minute AMRAP that's been repeated now, right? It was repeated.
Yep.
Great, like knowing like, why did I fall apart in that workout? Was it fitness? Was it a bad strategy? I think that's a huge box to check with what you just said. The other box to check is, I guess it's along the same lines, but knowing what type of workout is your GOAT. So we talked about movements being like things that, you know, it's like, fuck, please no chest to bar pull-ups, please no chest to bar pull-ups. Like, found them, chest to bar pull-ups. You got to know what kind of style and stimulus of workout is going to, is that GOAT, and how to strategize around that. And that's part of the reason we put the stimulus in the workouts that we write, and tell people like, hey, just be picking, you know, choosing the non-mandatory piece, or choosing to do this Metcon over what we say is mandatory, because you know that it's going to be, you know that you need to work on your muscular overload style workouts because you have no idea how to strategize them or whatever. You should be intimately familiar with what styles of workouts tend to put you down the leaderboard, and make that assessment.
I mean, I had this conversation after last Friday. So day 5 of week 2, we had the toe to bar, echo bike, rope climb, rest, go in the reverse order, and you do that 2 times through. And I did it in the morning with Caroline, and then later in Discord, I went on and I saw Justin Sala in my current scores, and I saw how they approached it, and both of them basically had fallen apart on the second gymnastics movement every single time. So I, out of, just seeing their notes, I asked, hey boys, how fast did you bike? And both of them biked significantly faster than I did. And I said to them, did you do that because you really like the other 2 movements? You're kind of find out your threshold, or are you just kind of going? And they both were like, just kind of going. And the problem with that then is because they then added 30 extra seconds to their workout because they were forced to stand around on either the rope climbs or the toes to bar, simply because of an athlete IQ issue, not because of anything to do with their fitness. They're both tremendous athletes with a high level of fitness, but you can self-sabotage with not taking the extra few seconds to be like, where does this workout slow down for people? And in a workout like that, that's super grippy and a lot of gymnastics, it's probably going to be the gymnastics for most people. There are going to be very few athletes who are like licking their chops because they can hammer the first 2 things and they're like, cool, let's fucking send the bike and find out where it is. So like that's an example of one single workout where you can look at that and go, I can go pretty fucking slow on the bike relative to my peers and wipe the floor of them simply because I looked at the other 2 parts and asked myself, like, where am I most likely to get stuck? And, me personally, it'd be like a muscular overload that tends to give me some trouble. So sort of what you just said there is like an example of how to read a workout and realize that like you don't gain a lot by sprinting the bike or going harder than somebody else. You gain time by not breaking things up or transitioning a bit quicker, and just knowing sort of by workout style, duration, movements, when to slide the slider up and go really hard, when to back down a bit, and knowing how to do that in the middle of a workout or in the middle of a style of workout that isn't a strength or a weakness for yourself can end up giving you a better performance on something relative to your peers, even potentially with less fitness than them.
Yeah. So to expand on that exercise, it is, how long do I think this is going to take, and how do I think it's going to go? So you could say, I'm going to break this up this way, or you could say, I really don't think that the C2 bike is going to upset my front squats at all. I feel like I'll be fresh after I sprint on the C2 bike when I start squatting heavy, something silly like that. And then afterwards, it's how long did it actually take and how did it actually go? And if you don't already do this, you're going to be blown away by the nuance that's built into it. Like, for example, my 3 favorite movements are muscle ups, handstand push-ups, and push-ups. I can't do muscle ups after I row. I cannot do push-ups after I assault bike, and I cannot do handstand push-ups after I ski. So this idea of it, these things don't live in the bubble or the vacuum that they do when you get to practice a skill in class and you get to show off your handstand push-ups. You got to know how fast you can ski and then what is appropriate to go in and do a set of. Obviously, the row muscle up would be potentially more important for the Open or the quarterfinals.
I'd say one other thing for the Open athlete is, again, probably around the January timeframe, there has to be a deliberate focus, whether it's circling the workout in red or, seeing it pop up in affiliate class where it's like, I can light myself on fire and I need to do that. There are way too many athletes who want to do well in the Open that wait to make their hardest and most intense effort 23.1 and it just fucking buries them. You have to introduce that as close to that level of intensity that you have when it's Friday night lights in your gym and 3, 2, 1 go happens and you decide that you're going to light your hair on fire. To get that, you have to introduce that feeling and be familiar with that sooner than 23.1.
There's a reason why every single sport they do like walkthroughs, they do 7-on-7, they do offense only, they do defense only, and then every once in a while they go full pads and go full tilt here and there because they have to know what that feels like and how the sport is played at the highest levels. So like, it's funny because I had this conversation with one of our athletes, the affiliate. Like they had come to me with, hey, the Open semifinal or quarterfinals are rolling around. What 2 movements should I work on to make sure I'm ready? And I said, let's talk in person because I'd rather have a conversation via text. And the only conversation was like, you need to be a killer more often. It has nothing to do with any of your movements. You need to know when you can demolish a workout and you put fucking everybody on notice with like, this is the standard of how this can be done. You need to do that more often because you can't, like you just said, can't turn it on 23.1 and expect to be that's your default because you'll still, even though you think you're going to that spot, you probably could have done better on that workout had you practiced that leading up to the season as opposed to, I'm going to show up on game day and be ready. It's like, nah, you should practice that ahead of time.
It's also your nervous system too. It's not just your brain. Yes, it's great that your brain knows what that level of discomfort is so you can sort of be ready for it. You can prepare for it. If you're taking your body to places that you've never gone before, the level of panic that your nervous system is going to present is much higher. You making it worse is going to make it even more worse. So when you're looking at a workout, and we can now take this to the third level of auditing a workout, if you know going into the open workout that in that 20-minute AMRAP, that minutes 14 through 18 are going to be the worst 4 minutes of your life, if that expectation is set, you can get some work done in that. You've already accepted that. You know what it feels like. We get to put ourselves in the biggest grave of all on machines, but we're more okay with it because there aren't really unknowns coming up. We know exactly when we're done. We know exactly how long we get to rest. Within the CrossFit workout, it's sort of just that whole like everything's great until you get punched in the mouth type moment. Punch yourself in the mouth in November. And then in February, when it happens, you're like, yeah, that tastes good. Excellent. I love it.
Thanks for that.
Quarterfinals athletes. What are we adding on to this? What boxes do the quarterfinals athletes need to check off? Because again, unfortunately, we have worked with CrossFit Games athletes who, if you had them do that exercise, the answers would be very incorrect. Their scores would be impressive at the end, but their scores or their answers would be incorrect. Therefore, they are leaving the strategy component on the table. And when you have someone like Fikowski in the sport who shows you what that element brings, especially with his size and what he's able to do in certain workouts, again, if you're only beating your head against the wall and not trying to be smart with this stuff, you're just never going to get to where you need to go.
Just trying to think what's nuanced and different between the two.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton. I think it goes back to the original conversation of like that the athlete getting ready for quarterfinals. Those boxes just have to be knowing like that we're not improving much on capacity of certain movements past a certain point, and it becomes again a bit of an athlete IQ exercise. Like what happens when quarterfinals event 1 is 30 pistols, 30 GHDs, and 10 ring muscle ups. Like how am I gonna attack a set of 10 ring muscle ups when I can only do 5 at a time, 4 at a time, and then there's some fatigue built in and stuff like that. So I think the athlete IQ side for the quarterfinals athlete is important. I think the checkbox of building in, making sure that some degree of capacity for the movements that we don't see quite as often, and whether it's a handstand walk, a GHD sit up, learning like how many people have asked for a shuttle run weakness template, and I'm gonna never mind. Like, hey, like beep, beep. you have to know these things. You have to understand there's a much greater detail or much greater level of detail to that. The understanding how long things take, how I can attack these, what kind of workouts are in my wheelhouse, what kind of workouts are not. But I don't find a huge difference between those two.
I think when the stakes become higher, which I think the stakes become higher at each level. It's not like a knock on what each individual person listening to this is trying to accomplish, but when the stakes become higher, and I don't know, the quarterfinals athlete, I think, is unintentionally put on an island because the entire community pays so close attention to the entire season that we don't realize that our Super Bowl is 2.5, 3 months away. And one major difference to our programming this year is going to be, we're going to peak hatchet athletes halfway through what will be potentially called Comp Block 1 or Phase 4 or something.
Called something.
But you are going to be peaking for your season during the Open. You are going to be training the hardest that you do all year and being the most focused and acting the most like a professional during that period of time. And it is a checkbox to sit down at your kitchen table and look at a calendar and write out, how you're going to be able to make some changes in your personal life or whatever to really get after it during that period of time, because it might just pass you by again and you might just not end up where you want to be because the community at large does not acknowledge that this is, it shouldn't be semifinals or bust. You're one of the fittest men or women on earth by qualifying for semifinals, and your ability to slide up and down that leaderboard could be directly correlated with, I knew that once Phase 3 ended and, once I got into January, that I walked through that threshold that we like to talk about. I walked through the gym, things were a little bit different, and I am on a peaking schedule, and I warm up for every workout and I cool down after every workout, and I don't do a strength session if I don't take the time to really dig into activation and all this good stuff. So I think checking off the box of knowing, like, my competition prep starts in January, and this is the hardest I'm going to go and the most dedicated I'm going to be all year. And I think that really is just to say, acknowledge that this is your Super Bowl and don't discount that it's your Super Bowl. It still is a big deal. It's definitely a big deal to you. So don't play it cool and be like, well, I'm not really a semifinals athlete, so I'm just going to keep training. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. Accept more responsibility. Don't self-sabotage and go all in January and February. And I think you're going to be really excited what happens in that, first week of March.
Yeah. All I could think of while you're talking, Drew, is like a circle with the stuff that you definitely control every single day in your life. And as you get closer and closer, your season gets further and further. If you want to be a higher level competitor, that circle grows a little bigger of things you have to control, and a little bigger and a little bigger. And then you start to erase things on the outside that aren't important anymore. And that circle grows to the point where it incorporates everything that you would potentially need to address to be the athlete you want to be. And then everything else that's outside gets completely erased and thought about or not thought about and is no longer relevant to you. And see you again when my season's over, I'll think about those things again. But until then, only the things that are found within that circle of influence, things I can control, those are the only things I care about, because if I start worrying about things outside that circle, I'm then robbing myself of energy that could be used to control the things that are inside that circle.
The 11 weeks from basically the end of the holidays to quarterfinals is the most important part of your season, and you've got about a month left to acknowledge that and get your ducks in a row to be able to execute. Semifinals athletes. Now it gets different. Right? What needs to take place between now into quarterfinals with semifinals athletes? I
think I'm going to cheat a little bit and go on more of a kind of at the tail end of what you were saying is that it's a little bit more, to me, it's preparation for what is to come, in the sense that what's going to happen, what is your schedule going to look like, because it's probably going to change come January, February timeframe as far as training, or I guess probably later than that, but now is kind of the time to be planning and preparing as far as do you coach are you an athlete who coaches classes in order to be able to train full time? Right. What's that going to look like when the competitive season starts? And are you going to is it going to cause more stress for you to be coaching classes than it is to be training? Is it going to be reallocation of time spent with family and friends and stuff like that? Almost starting to prepare everybody else to know that hey, I'm about to I'm about to like start ramping up really hard for this goal that I'm pursuing. So I don't know if that's a cop out, but from a training
That's sort of what I was getting at with that circle of influence, the things that aren't necessarily maybe the X's and O's of training, like the things that surround your training and the other hours of the day. I know we said 23 hours, probably like, I don't know, 12 hours for how much people train these days, but those hours are now accounted for and thought about. Like, have you dialed in everything that you need to do nutrition wise? Do you make sure your sleep is good? Like all of the other, like just general healthy things that augment your training, they need to be in as much alignment as your actual training itself. And, outside of that, I think this athlete is, again, you're just preparing their friends and family to be like, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm probably not going to come to that birthday party, or I'm not going to come to that anniversary thing because I have something going on, this and that. And again, I will be there when the season is over, but I care about this so much that I really want to pour. I want to find out what happens if I put 100% focus into this instead of like 95% focus.
Yeah, I think what you guys are saying, the way that I would translate it if I was talking directly to an athlete, is there are 100 things that you need to have figured out by March. You better start now. Is that kind of a way to wrap your mind around that?
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I think about this, it's sort of a tooting your own horn type of situation, but every single Misfit Athletics athlete that is remote coach that went to semifinals last year finished inside the top 10. And athletes of a similar caliber that follow our programming that did not have a remote coach did not finish inside the top 10. Now, making it to semifinals is incredible. That's an amazing thing to do. But one of the ways to do what you guys are talking about and to start to pay attention to that shit earlier on in the season is to get a remote coach. I think my answer to this question is the exact opposite of my answer for the quarterfinals athlete. I think if you get if you're a semifinals athlete and you get too bogged down in the open, in the lead up to quarterfinals, and you don't train your ass off for those 11 weeks in a way that, we can make these 7, we'll call it 7 to 10 weeks, is typically what a Misfit Athletics phase or training block looks like from a time perspective. We can make a lot of changes in that period of time, like a lot.
Especially for an athlete of that caliber,
exactly,
who already has that base of fitness.
So you might have missed phase 1, like Hunter talked about. So we could now be talking about whether you are getting 2 total or 3 total dedicated off-season chunks of training. I mean, I'm no mathematician, but there is a large difference between this is one of those things where someone says the difference between 1% and 2% isn't 1%, it's 100%.
Yeah.
Like going from...
My mind was just blown.
That's a really important thing, right?
Right, though.
Yeah, you get 1% better at something and you're at the beginning of your journey, that's 100% better. So you look at that from the same perspective of this person kept their eyes on the prize and got 50% more dedicated training than you. Is that a big deal? Yes, that is a very big deal. So we have tailored the programming inside of phase 4 to try to avoid shiny object syndrome as much as possible. And that is to say, we know how crazy you all are. So we have sort of, again, same amount of training, but certain pieces on certain days are going to look a certain way. We don't need to get into that so that you can stay on track and keep your shit together. But anytime you decide to take someone who's willing to make the sacrifices to become a semifinals athlete and compare them to everyone else in the world, there's some sparks, some wires get crossed, some things happen. But it is also on you to stay away from that as much as possible. We will steer you in the right direction. The whole 50-50 agreement. We're going to provide content for you guys. We're going to provide what we think is the best programming in the world, but you also need to acknowledge sort of the content and what we're talking about with that and stay laser focused for that period of time, because you're going to start semifinals prep between 2 and 4 weeks after quarterfinals. The athlete that enters that portal means a lot, right? Like, we can't fix everything in semifinals prep. Semifinals prep is like, oh, no. You just did all the dragon slaying. Now we're going to turn you into a fucking monster. So really, really, really pay attention to, hopefully your status quo is pretty fucking awesome in the off season, and you can stay within that mindset for those 11 weeks. Because if you, again, enter through your portal, will be for semifinals prep. That will be the moment when you walk through the gym and say, shit just got real. How fit you are once as a starting point is very important.
Yeah, I'd say reframing what the shiny object is kind of what I was thinking about as you were talking. Like, the shiny object, instead of going off the beaten path and doing something completely different because you're like bored of what you're currently doing, the shiny object should be finding the 1% in what you're already currently doing that could be done better, so that you are progressing and that there aren't these outside distractions. Almost you're like the horse with the fucking carriage behind it with the blinders on its eyes. Like, you're so obsessed with looking straight ahead at what you have in front of you that you couldn't even be concerned what's on the left and right of you, because your shiny object is the thing that is in today's session that wasn't last time a focus, or something you couldn't get from last session, and now you're aiming to build upon what you learned last time. So that becomes the shiny object that propels you forward in front of you instead of distracts you and gets you to turn left or right to some place that's not the direction you want to go.
I think it's important to tell people why your answer is 1,000 times better than mine. I basically said, let's narrow the focus to an 11-week period. And Sherb was like, no. Let's narrow the focus to exactly what you're doing within this moment and how you can use that to get better. So same sort of concept of narrowing of the focus, but like take it all the way down to the nitty gritty. You have the only piece that matters is the one that you are currently doing or about to do. It's that next thing.
It's like one of those NASA telescopes that sees the entire sky and then, finds like a freckle on like the moon of Jupiter and is like, that's what I was looking at. It's like, that's the detail I was going for. Zoomed that far in. It's like how far it goes. Yeah.
The Hubble Sherboscope.
Sherboscope. I'm starting inventing them.
Sherble Hubble scope.
You got the right shirt on for it too.
4 easy payments at $9.99.
That's it?
Yeah, it's just a piece of paper with a hole in it.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Are we in games mode now?
Did you go first on this one?
Yeah, I did.
We already made it all the way back around?
Yeah, I took a nap while you two were
all right.
jarring off.
CrossFit Games athletes. Now, there's almost a sort of this definition of, have we decided in this instance that this person is going to blast through semifinals? Does this include fringe CrossFit Games athletes all the way to podium CrossFit Games athletes? Let's set a definition first and then answer the question, because they're not all the same.
I feel like a top 10 games athlete is the definition of what a games athlete is, because those people typically rotate. You could extend maybe 15 places, but like the top of the top typically are the people that come there every single year.
If Olympic coaches think your body can peak once every 4 years, then asking a CrossFit Games athlete to do it 2 or 3 times within a year doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we can either answer it for both athletes, or we can set the definition.
I'd answer it for both, just because I feel like we're far enough out from either of those two athlete scenarios that it doesn't make too much of a difference. Right now, the first thing that came to mind is that you need to be building yourself in such a way that enables you to stay healthy for the entire season. You get into quarterfinals time frame and you hurt yourself,
and that's typically stress goes up, and you're not doing the things you should.
Yeah,
that's
so
when
I was
people
just
get
thinking
injured.
when you were talking about the lifting and accessory stuff, I'm like, oh, and that's what I'm like. Kelly's doing a lot of that, and it's like we need to, and she's slowly recovering from a minor issue, but it's like we need to make sure that isn't going to happen from like February on. So that was my first thought because the games level athlete is so far out from starting to peak. A games level athlete doesn't have the same level of weaknesses as a quarter and semifinals athlete. So I think it's far enough out that emphasizing just making sure that you're building yourself in such a way that makes you durable enough to withstand the entirety of a pretty rugged semifinals prep when that happens, and then games prep as well. So we're just so far out that there aren't as many boxes, I feel like.
So that's the athlete that's not a shoo-in or is a shoo-in for the CrossFit Games?
We decided they were the same person for this question.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an athlete who's
highly
not...
probable games athlete of 40th to 1st.
Yeah, if you're not a shoo-in for the CrossFit Games, I just caution you against looking ahead too far and not paying attention to what's right in front of you, because I think that's another thing that tends to happen with some athletes is they either rest on their laurels or they assume something's in the bag and they kind of cruise through this part of the year, and all of a sudden maybe they squeak into semifinals in a spot they didn't think they were going to be in, and because of their spot they squeaked in at, they're a little bit lower in the bottom heat and they think they're doing well, and the next thing they know they watch the top heat and they get beat by a bit, and then that athlete is, a handful of points out of qualifying for the CrossFit Games, do nothing other than just a little bit of focus that could have been better through certain parts of the season leading up to their Super Bowl. And that is one thing I think we've seen historically with either the regionals athlete or the games athlete that had maybe success in a prior season, then sort of thinks that next time they go back, it'll still be, it'll still be work, but I'll get there again, and maybe don't pay attention to the things that could have been shored up in one season so that it would be almost like I'm going to definitely go back again. Yep. And I think we're obviously talking to a very small sector of the population. That's an easy trap to fall into. And with how much of the athletes that we know tie a lot of their personal identity to their sport, even though we would argue they shouldn't do that, that can be a really derailing thing where we could potentially be career ending, where it's so frustrating that you don't want to go back and do it again, or it sets you up for a few years of difficulty, which in the long run could be a good thing. Maybe the difficulty propels you to the podium spot that you wanted when you first started and you needed a few years of difficulty to get there. But I just see an athlete potentially looking ahead too far and not paying attention to, like, you say, the alligator closest to the boat kind of thing. That's what I would worry with those athletes potentially not being as focused, because they're focused on something that happens, in August and it's January.
I'm going to give two totally different answers for the sort of the yin and the yang type athlete. So we see how do I word this? Adrenaline junkie, for lack of a better term, type athlete who lives for semifinals and game day, and each time they get to do that. And they're at that point in the season right now where they're like, please, I got this. Like, the problem with that, again, is the best version of yourself will not show up at semifinals in the CrossFit Games. Somewhere in you probably at this level aren't okay with that. So I would say in the next 2 months, trying to figure out how to be a professional on a daily basis. I don't think that type of athlete needs to be as concerned with, just absolutely murdering training every single day. They might need to find different victories. Some of them literally, when we program a 60-minute row, are trying to figure out how they can sit down for 60 minutes. Their score coming out the other side, maybe it's good, maybe it's not so good. The victory for that type of athlete is, I showed up in November and I rode for a single hour. So if you live for those moments and you don't love the practice, trying to use from January, into March to figure out what your version of being a professional is, I think is absolutely imperative. Flip the coin over. We have the people who always show up, always there. They always check all of the boxes off. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't ask so much of yourself. And, we had this workout that was programmed that probably too soon for Misfit followers, but it was 7 rounds of skiing, chest to bar muscle up, and deadlifts. And
I got some hate mail.
I have an athlete who is very much I'm showing up and I'm getting the work done type of athlete. And you have this one workout that's planted in there that it's like, I'm positive I suck at CrossFit because of how bad this workout was. Hunter's very excited he wrote this workout. Hunter was also very mad at me for asking him to write this workout, but that's a whole nother thing, because it was combining 2 progressions into one single workout. Anyways, that mindset of sort of coming up to that enemy or that, name that's circled on the calendar and having it not go so well, though, that level of expectation just doesn't really belong at this point in the season, and you make your money on delayed gratification and showing up and stacking victories and going little by little. So if you have these, sort of ups and down moments, get back to what you do best and continue to just chip away. It's the reason you got to where you are. It's the reason why you're going to be better every single season. Don't let these offhand moments of someone beating you in a workout or having a bad day or whatever change the narrative of, the reality of an athlete like that is you are basically the best version of an athlete. You are dedicated, you're getting it done, you're going in there. A lot of times you have to rework that humility to get the best version of that athlete to come out in competition, but I'd say that's a separate thing. Stick to your plan. Do not let the open or quarterfinals sort of tell you, again, change this narrative to something that it's not. It's a process. It's going to take all year. We're not going to ask you to peak for another X number of months. Just keep working.
Yeah, I'd tell that athlete in that situation, if I had an athlete come back at me with an experience like that, I'd look at that as almost like a blessing. You have something that just reignited your fire because you found something you're not good at. And that is something we want to have propel us, because when you have a greater adversary, you work harder to accomplish that or conquer that adversary. So, while I understand the frustration and like, fuck, I suck, I'm terrible, I can't do this, everybody beat me, that moment usually is pretty fleeting. And if the coach can then redirect and be like, hey, that means we've found a workout style or a combination of movements or something that we don't want to have happen at the CrossFit Games or happen at semifinals, where then it's like, fuck, the season's over, sorry, bud. Like, we have that now. That's great. That's one more enemy or one more giant we can slay ahead of the season, so that when the season matters for me or I'm at my Super Bowl, it's not a surprise. This combination didn't come up and all of a sudden fucking throw me for a loop and give me, 40th place when I could have been 15th if I had just seen it ahead of time and had been prepared for it because it came up early in the year. So while I understand that psyche, because I definitely have those moments myself, we should probably try to reframe that as quickly as possible of like, hey, guess what? We found something that we weren't very good at. Excellent. Now we have something to kind of maybe even be a micro focus within a phase itself, or something that we separate now into a skill session or an EMOM or something separate, so that you can remind yourself like, oh, I am pretty fit. It was just the one part of the day that I did it in, or the combination of what I did leading up to it. Maybe it was just, a bad sleeping night before, and all of a sudden it was this thing that was made up to be a big deal, and it actually really wasn't. It was just a rough one workout.
It's one of those moments too, where you're like, fucking congratulations, you're alive. You still give a fuck. That's awesome. Move on. Like,
yeah, basically.
There's not much more to it than that. Final thoughts.
Start now.
The point of this podcast was let's not like, we're obviously still going to have this big push for phase 4. We're trying to get as many people on board, and we're going to tell you what the plan is for the different programs. But the point of this podcast was, we see it every single year with our own affiliate athletes. I know a lot of them listen to the podcast. We see it, across Team Misfit gyms, the Misfits affiliate programming, and then all the way up to CrossFit Games athletes. Sure, I've already said it. Don't let that date, that moment where you realize that all of this stuff is going to come crashing down on you, start too late. Just start now. Go get your jump rope, get yourself some new Bear Complex grips, get your ass up on the pull-up bar, stay after class for 15 minutes, get your jump rope, whatever it is, do some extra work. You will have a much better time during the Open.
I think if all of this talk in the middle of December about the competitive season kind of makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck, and you're starting to feel a little bit of that weight and a little bit of that pressure.
It's too late. Throw your phone in the ocean.
I think it's important that, like, acknowledge the fact that pressure is a bit of a privilege when it comes to competing in the sport of CrossFit, and like, every athlete feels the same way, and the goal isn't to necessarily reduce the pressure that you feel. It's to teach you how to handle that and leverage it in such a way that makes you the best version of yourself that you can be. And I think to attack that portion, just remember that becoming the athlete you want to be is found in the place that you least want to look. And we talked about that in the beginning of the podcast. It's like, if you subconsciously but consciously, there's that thing that's like, man, I'm probably going to bank that's not going to pop up. And like, we'll like shove this under the rug for a little bit longer. Like the dragon grows. Don't let the dragon grow out of control. Control it now while it's small and manageable, because
he's out in the Forbidden Forest behind Hagrid's hut. He's waiting for you.
Because in February that thing's going to be too big for you to handle.
Yeah, my only other thing to add on top to that is, like, you have so much time right now, and going back to what we said halfway through the podcast, the more time between now and your Super Bowl, the more opportunity you have to do it in manageable chunks. Do that now, and if you find yourself struggling with motivation, I guarantee you can go into the week in advance, look at every single piece, and find at least one thing in every single session that you want to try to improve upon, and that should hopefully reignite that spark. You're like, fuck, there is still stuff to be done in every single session. So the day where I don't want to go out there and hop on the C2 bike and do my 15-minute sweat check ahead of, I don't fucking know, lunges. Like, what can I learn today and what can I get better at? Because the more of those sessions that happen, the better prepared you are, the less like you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass and disappointed at the end of the season that you didn't reach your goals once more.
We do it?
Yep.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of Chip Talk. Another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsors. If you like Frito-Lay, Fox chips. We got to make a phone call. If you like the podcast and you like the YouTube channel, the absolute best way to support what we do is to head to misfitathletics.com and sign up. You get 2 weeks for free. We're also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use your favorite athlete code. We're talking about the upcoming competitive season. One of the ways that they can compete is by making money off of their athlete code usage at sharpentheaxeco.com. And last but not least, the best pre and post workout and hydration supplement in the game, Proper Fuel. Head to properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit. See you next week.